No one noticed him at first. The glass doors of the corporate headquarters slid open quietly as Jason Statham stepped inside. No cameras flashed, no assistants followed, no luxury suit or flashy watch. Just a dark jacket, simple boots, and the calm walk of a man who didn't need to announce himself. This building carried his name on the legal papers. His vision built it from the ground up. Yet today, he looked like a stranger. The lobby was massive, polished floors, towering glass walls, company awards shining behind display cases. Employees moved quickly, phones in hand, coffee cups balanced, eyes fixed on schedules and screens. Jason paused for a moment, scanning the place, not with curiosity, but with assessment. He walked toward the reception desk. The receptionist glanced up briefly, then back to her screen. "Yes?" she said, without a smile. Jason spoke calmly. "I'm here to see management." She looked him up and down. Casual clothes, no badge, no appointment visible on her system. "Do you have a meeting scheduled?" she asked, already typing. "No," Jason replied, "but they'll want to see me." That earned him a raised eyebrow. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, tone cool now. "Without an appointment, I can't let you upstairs." Jason nodded slightly, unfazed. "Then call them. Tell them Jason is here." She stopped typing. "Jason who?" For the first time, a hint of silence hung in the air. Jason didn't answer right away. He simply waited, hands relaxed at his sides, posture steady, not demanding, not nervous, just certain. Behind him, a pair of security guards exchanged a look. One of them stepped closer. "Sir," the guard said firmly, "this is a private corporate building. If you don't have business here, we're going to have to ask you to leave." Jason slowly turned to face him. Up close, there was something different about this man. Not aggressive, not loud, just controlled, focused, the kind of presence that made people straighten without knowing why. "I do have business here," Jason said. "Very important business." The guard crossed his arms. "Then you'll need to follow procedure like everyone else." Jason glanced around the lobby again. Employees were beginning to notice. A few slowed their steps. Some whispered, "Who's that guy? Why's security talking to him? He doesn't look like he belongs here." Jason heard it all. And still, he didn't raise his voice. "I'm just asking for a conversation," he said calmly. "Nothing more." The receptionist sighed, clearly annoyed now. "Sir, we're very busy. Please don't make this difficult." That was when Jason smiled, just slightly. Not amused, not angry, more like disappointed. He took a step back, giving them space. Not retreating, not advancing, just observing how quickly respect disappeared when people thought it didn't matter. The security guard gestured toward the exit. "Last warning, you need to leave." Jason looked at the glass doors behind him, then back at the building in front of him, the company he built, the people he trusted, the culture he thought he knew, and quietly, almost to himself, he said, "So, this is how it works now." Around them, phones began to come out. Someone started recording. The air shifted. Because something about this moment felt wrong, and nobody in that lobby realized yet. They were about to tell the owner of the company to walk away from his own empire. What happens next changes everything. The lobby no longer felt calm. What had started as a quiet interaction now carried an edge, the kind you could feel without anyone raising their voice. Employees slowed their steps. Conversations faded. A few people subtly lifted their phones, pretending to check messages while recording everything. Jason Statham stood near the reception desk, hands relaxed, expression unreadable. The first security guard cleared his throat, louder this time. "Sir, you need to move toward the exit. You're disrupting business." Jason looked at him steadily. "I'm not disrupting anything," he replied. "I'm standing still." The guard didn't like that answer. "You were told to leave," he said. "That's not a request." Jason tilted his head slightly, studying the man's stance, his posture, the tension in his shoulders. He had seen this kind of behavior before, people confusing authority with control. "I was told to leave," Jason said calmly, "without being asked why I'm here." The receptionist leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "This isn't a debate," she said. "We have rules." Jason nodded once. "Rules matter," he agreed. "So does how you apply them." That earned him a sharp look. Another guard approached, taller, more rigid. "We don't have time for this," the second guard said. "Sir, please cooperate." Around them, whispers grew louder. Why are they pushing him? He hasn't done anything. This is uncomfortable. Jason could feel the eyes on him now, dozens of them, and still he didn't flinch. He took a slow breath. "Let me ask you something," Jason said, voice level. "If I were wearing a suit, would this conversation sound the same?" The guards exchanged a glance. "That has nothing to do with it," one replied quickly. Jason gave a small nod. "Of course it does." A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd. Someone near the elevators muttered, "He's got a point." The first guard stepped closer, invading Jason's personal space. Not violent, but assertive. "Sir," he said firmly, "you need to step outside, now." For the first time, Jason moved. Not back, not forward. Just one clean, controlled shift of position, enough to create space without touching anyone. The movement was smooth, professional, almost effortless. The guard hesitated. Jason met his eyes. "You don't need to do this," he said quietly. "And neither do I." That sentence landed harder than shouting ever could. A few employees openly started filming now. No hiding it. "Let me ask you something. Have you ever been judged just by how you look? And tell me, which country or city are you watching this from right now?" Back in the lobby, management still hadn't arrived. The receptionist tapped her desk impatiently. "Security, just remove him. We have work to do." Jason's jaw tightened, not in anger, but resolve. "I came here for transparency," he said. "Instead, I'm getting assumptions." The second guard raised a hand, signaling calm, but his tone stayed firm. "Sir, last chance." Jason glanced toward the company logo mounted high on the wall. Polished, perfect, expensive. He remembered late nights, risky decisions, people who believed in the mission, and now, this. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Jason said, "but I won't be pushed out without being heard." That's when the first guard reached for Jason's arm, not aggressively, not violently, just enough. In one smooth motion, Jason rotated his shoulder, gently breaking contact, without force. No strike, no shove, just skill and timing. The guard stumbled half a step back, surprised more than hurt. The lobby froze. Every sound seemed to disappear. Jason didn't capitalize on the moment. He didn't advance. He didn't posture. He simply said, calmly and clearly, "Please don't touch me again." The authority in his voice was unmistakable. The guards hesitated now. For the first time, uncertainty crept in. Employees stared wide-eyed. Someone whispered, "Who is this guy?" The receptionist looked shaken. "This is getting out of hand," she said. "Call management, now." Jason exhaled slowly. "Thank you," he said. "That's all I asked for." As the call was made, tension hung heavy in the air. Everyone sensed it. This wasn't just about security anymore. This was about something deeper, respect, judgment, and a man who refused to be dismissed. Jason stood still, waiting, because once management arrived, everything was about to change, and they still had no idea who he really was. The lobby felt smaller now, not because the space had changed, but because the tension had. Jason Statham stood exactly where he was, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. Around him, employees had stopped pretending to work. Phones were openly raised. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. This wasn't normal anymore. The first security guard rubbed his wrist, more embarrassed than injured. He avoided eye contact now. The second guard shifted his stance, unsure whether to step forward or wait. Management still hadn't arrived. The receptionist lowered her voice, sharp and irritated. "You need to leave before this becomes a bigger problem." Jason looked at her, not with anger, but disappointment. "A bigger problem?" he asked calmly. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't threatened anyone. I asked for a conversation. That's not how this works, she snapped. You don't just walk in and demand access. Jason nodded slowly. And yet, he said, that's exactly what happens here every day, just for different people. The words landed quietly, but they landed. Someone near the elevators whispered, He's right. A manager from a nearby department stepped closer, trying to smooth things over. Sir, she said carefully, maybe it's best if you come back another time. We can schedule. Jason turned to her politely. With respect, he replied. If this is how people are treated at the door, then scheduling won't fix what's broken inside. The crowd grew still. The guards exchanged another look. The first one sighed, clearly frustrated. We're done talking, he said. You need to go, now. Jason didn't move, not out of stubbornness, but principle. He glanced once more at the company logo, the mission statement etched into the wall beneath it. Words about integrity, respect, accountability. He gestured toward it. Do those words mean anything anymore? He asked quietly. No one answered. Quick question for you watching. If you were in his place, would you walk away to avoid trouble, or stand your ground to protect your dignity? Comment stand or leave below. Back in the lobby, the silence grew heavier. The second guard took a cautious step forward. Sir, he said, trying a softer tone, let's not escalate this. Jason met his eyes. I agree, he said. Escalation helps no one. Then the first guard made a mistake. Frustration got the better of him. He reached again, this time firmer, grabbing Jason's sleeve. The reaction was instant. Jason pivoted, gently redirecting the guard's momentum with practiced precision. No strike, no slam, just balance and timing. The guard stumbled back 2 steps and caught himself against a desk. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jason immediately raised both hands, palms open. Stop, he said calmly. I'm not here to fight. The room froze. The guard stared at him, stunned, not by pain but by how easily control had been taken away. Jason stepped back on his own, creating space. You don't need force to be heard, he said evenly. But I won't allow myself to be handled like a problem. Phones were everywhere now. Someone whispered, that was clean. Another said, who is he? The receptionist looked shaken. That's it, she said. This is unacceptable. Jason turned to her. What's unacceptable, he replied, is judging people before listening to them. A long pause followed. Then footsteps echoed from the hallway. Executives, finally. The guards straightened instantly. The receptionist adjusted her posture. The crowd leaned in. Jason didn't move. He didn't rush to explain. He didn't announce himself. He simply waited. Because he knew something they didn't. This moment wasn't about proving strength. It was about revealing truth. As the executives approached, confusion crossed their faces. Tension, uncertainty, curiosity. One of them looked at Jason and frowned. Not in anger, in recognition. But the realization hadn't fully formed yet. Not yet. The room held its breath. Because in just a few seconds, everything they thought they knew about this situation, and about the man standing calmly in the center of their lobby, was about to be challenged. And the truth was closer than anyone expected. The footsteps grew louder. 3 executives entered the lobby, dressed sharply, confidence written into every step, the kind of confidence that comes from believing you control the room. Conversations stopped instantly. Phones stayed raised, but no one dared speak. The lead executive looked around, irritated. What's going on here? He asked. The receptionist rushed forward. This man is refusing to leave, she said quickly. Security asked him multiple times. The executive's eyes landed on Jason, just for a second, then moved past him. Sir, the executive said, already annoyed, you can't disrupt operations like this. Jason didn't interrupt. He didn't defend himself. He didn't explain. He simply met the man's gaze. That's when the executive paused. Something about the way Jason stood, calm, unshaken, unbothered, didn't fit the story he'd just been told. The second executive leaned in, whispering, Is this the guy? I think so, the receptionist replied. He showed up without an appointment. Jason folded his arms slowly, not defensively, thoughtfully. I didn't come to disrupt anything, he said. I came to understand something. The lead executive frowned. Understand what, exactly? Jason gestured gently around the lobby. How people are treated when no one important is watching. A few employees exchanged nervous looks. The executive scoffed. You're making this bigger than it is. Jason nodded. That's what people usually say, right before they realize it already is. Silence followed. The first security guard shifted his weight, uncomfortable. The second avoided eye contact completely now. One of the executives finally looked at Jason more carefully. Not his clothes, his face, his posture, his eyes. The executive blinked once, then again. His expression changed, slowly, subtly, like a puzzle piece sliding into place. He took a step closer. Jason didn't move. The executive swallowed. Wait, he said under his breath. The room seemed to lean forward. The executive tilted his head, studying Jason's face. I know you, he said quietly. Jason said nothing. The second executive laughed nervously. Don't be ridiculous. But the first executive wasn't laughing. I've seen you before, he continued. Board meetings, early days, site visits. The receptionist's smile faded. The executive's voice dropped. You're not just a visitor. Jason finally spoke. I never said I was. A chill passed through the lobby. The executive took another step back, not in fear, but in realization. Oh, he whispered. The word was barely audible, but everyone heard it. The receptionist's face went pale. The guards stiffened. Employees stopped breathing. The second executive snapped, What are you talking about? The first executive didn't answer right away. He looked at Jason, then at the logo on the wall, then back at Jason. Slowly, carefully, he said, You're not supposed to be here today. Jason gave a small nod. I know. Why didn't you announce yourself? The executive asked, confused now, almost shaken. Jason's eyes swept across the lobby, the guards, the desk, the crowd. Because I wanted to see the truth, he said, not the performance. The weight of that sentence crushed the room. The receptionist stepped back, hands trembling slightly. Security suddenly looked unsure of where to stand. One employee whispered, Wait, who is he? Another replied, I think he's… Enough, the executive said sharply, cutting them off. He straightened his jacket, then faced Jason fully. I owe you an explanation, he said quietly. Jason raised a hand. No, he replied. You owe them one. He gestured to the staff. To everyone who walks through these doors without power, without status, without a name that changes how they're treated. No one argued. No one could. The room was silent now, not tense, but stunned. The executive exhaled slowly. This was mishandled. Jason nodded once. That's one word for it. The guard who had tried to escort Jason earlier looked down at the floor. Phones kept recording, but now, not out of curiosity, out of awe. The second executive finally found his voice. So, what happens now? Jason looked at him calmly. Now, he said, we stop pretending this was a misunderstanding. He glanced back at the people who had dismissed him minutes earlier. This, he continued, is a mirror. No shouting, no threats, just truth. And everyone in that lobby understood one thing. This situation had just crossed a line, because the man they tried to remove wasn't here to argue. He was here to change something, and in the next moment, Jason Statham would take full control, without raising his voice once. The silence in the lobby was no longer awkward. It was heavy. The lead executive stood frozen for a moment, then slowly turned to face the others. His confident posture from earlier was gone, replaced by something closer to caution. Everyone, he said carefully, I think we need to pause. Jason Statham stood in the center of the room, hands relaxed, expression calm. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't demanded anything. And yet, somehow, the entire building now felt like it was waiting on him. The executive cleared his throat. "This is Jason Statham," he said at last. "Founder, majority owner." The words landed like a shockwave. A few employees gasped. Someone muttered, "No way." Another whispered, "That's him." The receptionist's face drained of color. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again, no words coming out. Security straightened instantly. The guard who had tried to escort Jason earlier took a slow step back, eyes wide with disbelief. Not fear, realization. Jason didn't react. No smile, no smirk, no satisfaction. He simply stood there watching how quickly everything changed. Respect arrived instantly, not earned, not discussed, just switched on. And that's when Jason finally spoke. "Interesting," he said quietly. "How fast the room shifts when a title is attached." No one argued. The executive nodded, visibly uncomfortable. "This situation never should have escalated," he said. "I take responsibility." Jason turned toward him. "I believe you," he said. "But responsibility isn't just a sentence. It's action." The executive swallowed. Jason looked around the lobby, at the guards, the receptionist, the employees who had watched silently. "5 minutes ago," Jason continued, "I was treated like a problem. Now I'm treated like a priority." He paused. "That difference," he said, "is exactly why I came in unannounced." The room stayed silent. No defensiveness, no excuses, just truth hanging in the air. One employee near the back spoke up hesitantly. "So, you wanted to test us?" Jason shook his head. "No," he replied. "I wanted to see us." That sentence hit harder than any confrontation. The executive took a step forward. "What would you like us to do?" Jason met his gaze. "First," he said calmly, "everyone relax. No one is in trouble just for today." A collective breath was released. "Second," Jason continued, "we're going to talk about how power is handled here, especially when no one thinks they're being watched." He glanced briefly at security. "Authority without respect becomes intimidation," he said. "That ends now." The guards nodded silently. Jason turned to the receptionist. "And professionalism starts at the front door." She nodded quickly, embarrassed but listening. Jason wasn't blaming, he was correcting. "That's leadership," someone whispered. Jason finally addressed the entire lobby. "I didn't build this company to be impressed by titles," he said. "I built it to be proud of how people are treated, at every level." He looked toward the executive team. "And that responsibility starts with us." The executives nodded in agreement. Phones were still recording, but now no one cared about scandal. This had become something else. A lesson. Jason stepped back slightly, creating space again. A subtle signal. "Let's take this upstairs," he said. "All of it." The executive gestured immediately. "Of course." As the group began moving toward the elevators, employees watched in stunned silence. The same man they were ready to remove moments ago was now leading the room, without force, without ego, without raising his voice. The power hadn't changed because of his name. It changed because of his calm. And as the elevator doors closed behind them, one thing was clear. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the turning point. Because what Jason was about to do next would reshape the entire company. The elevator doors slid open onto the executive floor. The space was quieter up here, thicker carpet, glass walls, long hallways that usually made people lower their voices without realizing it. Jason Statham stepped out first, not because anyone told him to, but because everyone instinctively moved aside. Executives followed, then security, then a few department heads who had insisted on coming. No one spoke. The tension from the lobby hadn't disappeared. It had transformed. It was no longer about removal. It was about reckoning. Inside the main conference room, Jason stopped at the head of the table, but didn't sit. He waited until everyone else found their place. Only then did he speak. "Before we begin," Jason said calmly, I want something clear. Every eye locked onto him. This isn't a punishment meeting. A few shoulders relaxed. It's a responsibility meeting. That landed differently. Jason paced slowly, not to intimidate, but to connect. When I walked into the lobby, he said, I didn't see a bad company. I saw a blind spot. He looked toward the security team. Security is meant to protect people, he continued. Not profiles, not assumptions. The guards nodded, listening closely. He turned to the executives. Leadership, Jason said, isn't proven when things are easy. It's revealed when power meets the unexpected. No one interrupted. No one checked a phone. Jason leaned his hands lightly on the table. If I had been a delivery driver, he said, or a job applicant, or just someone having a bad day, how would that lobby moment have ended? The question hung there. Let me ask you watching this. What matters more in leadership, power or character? Comment power or character below. Back in the room, one executive finally spoke. We failed that test, he admitted quietly. Jason nodded. Yes, he said, but failure only matters if we ignore it. He straightened. Effective immediately, Jason continued. We're implementing 3 changes. Everyone leaned in. First, retraining, not just security, but front-facing staff. Respect is not optional, it's foundational. He looked at the receptionist, who nodded firmly. Second, accountability, not public shaming, clear standards. The executives scribbled notes. And third, Jason said, access. The room looked confused. If someone walks into this building, he explained, they deserve dignity before credentials. We verify information, we don't decide worth. That sentence settled deep. Jason paused, then added, I don't want a company that only behaves when it thinks I'm watching. Silence. That kind of culture collapses eventually, he said, quietly, from the inside. The lead executive stood. You're right, he said. We lost perspective. Jason met his eyes. Then let's get it back. No applause, no speeches, just agreement. Jason finally took a seat, not at the head, but among them. That detail didn't go unnoticed. This isn't about hierarchy, he said. It's about standards. A security supervisor cleared his throat. Sir, thank you for handling this the way you did. Jason nodded once. Handle people well, he replied. The rest follows. The meeting ended quickly after that, not because there was nothing more to say, but because the message was already clear. As they stood to leave, the atmosphere felt different, lighter, sharper, honest. Jason walked back toward the elevators alone, not escorted, not followed, just respected. And as the doors closed, one executive said quietly to another, That's the kind of authority you don't forget. Jason looked at his reflection in the elevator mirror. No smile, no anger, just resolve. Because the real test wasn't what happened upstairs. It was what would happen next, when he walked back through that lobby again. And that final moment would say everything. The elevator doors opened again. Jason Statham stepped back into the lobby. The same space where everything had begun. Same polished floor, same front desk, same glass doors, but nothing felt the same anymore. The room went quiet the moment he appeared. Employees straightened instinctively. Conversations paused. Phones lowered, not because they were told to, but because this moment no longer felt like something to record. The receptionist stood up from her chair. Not abruptly, not nervously, with intention. Good afternoon, she said. How can I help you? The difference was immediate. Jason met her eyes and nodded. Good afternoon, he replied. No tension, no hesitation. Just respect. The kind that didn't need a title to exist. Security stood alert, professional, but relaxed. The guard who had earlier tried to escort Jason now stepped forward and spoke first. Sir, he said, I owe you an apology. Jason held up a hand gently. Apologies matter, he said, but improvement matters more. The guard nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Around them, employees watched quietly, not with fear, but reflection. Jason took one last look around the lobby. This was the real test. Not recognition, not authority, but behavior. When the moment had passed, he walked toward the exit. As he reached the glass doors, someone behind him spoke. "Sir?" Jason turned. It was a young employee, new by the look of it, nervous but sincere. "Thank you," she said, "for showing what leadership actually looks like." Jason paused. Then he smiled, not the sharp, intimidating kind people expected from him, but something warmer. "Remember this," he said. "You don't need permission to treat people well." He pushed the doors open and stepped outside. The sunlight felt different, not because anything had changed in the world, but because something had changed inside that building. Later that day, an internal message went out. Not dramatic, not defensive, clear, new training protocols, updated access procedures, a renewed focus on dignity and professionalism, and one line at the end that said everything. Titles do not define respect. Our actions do. Word spread quickly, not as gossip, but as example. Employees talked about it over lunch. Managers referenced it in meetings. New hires heard the story not as a warning, but as a standard. Jason never made a public statement. He didn't need to, because the impact wasn't online. It was internal. Weeks later, Jason returned again, this time announced. But something surprised him. The lobby didn't change. People didn't scramble. No sudden smiles. No performative politeness. Just consistency. That's when he knew it worked. Because real change doesn't require reminders. As Jason walked through the building, conversations continued. Work continued. Respect was no longer selective. At the front desk, the receptionist greeted him the same way she greeted everyone else. Professional. Courteous. Human. Jason nodded once more and headed upstairs. This time, not to correct anything, but to build. If you believe real strength is shown through respect, not status, type respect in the comments. And if you enjoyed this powerful story, subscribe for more action-driven lessons like this. Because in the end, true power isn't about being recognized when you walk in. It's about being remembered by how you treated people when no one knew who you were.